So for those who don't know, the 8th house is the house of fear, traditionally speaking. And this is the place in our lives. It's a representation. Of course, astrologically, those are places. Okay. But for me, what I realize is like I have a lot of that. I have the moon in Aquarius in 8th house. So it's both Aquarian plus the moon plus Scorpio energy plus so Pluto. And it's actually has all these aspects to Pluto itself and also to Mars and Mercury and Uranus and a bunch of other things that cause a lot of like fear behind it. So I understand where this is. I understand the fear behind like, because it's very, I have like sun in the 4th house. It's very, Cancer wants to protect, right? So the house of fear is there's a lot of things that we fear, especially one of them is death. Yes, this is the part where we're just afraid of, well, dying, because why? Like we ask ourselves, why? That's the question. Like, why are we afraid of death? Well, yes, you can go back to, evolutionary processes where it's like we are conditioned. It's the ego, but it's also a defense mechanism to protect ourselves, to be, but there's something else beyond that, because I believe that, because I was looking into the convoluted universe, I was reading it, I finished reading it last night. Woohoo! And I read that, so the things that she's talking about, her QHE, Dolores Cannon, for those who don't know, that's Dolores Cannon's, one of her books. And she talks about, and she does her readings, she discovered people going back to past lives, but beyond Earth. And there's other people who have done also QHHT readings, and also Akashic records. I believe they've done that, where they go into different lives, different galaxies, different dimensions. And it makes perfect sense, because it's like, why you can't just be like, I have fear. Okay, it's a defense mechanism, it's evolution, but there's more than that. I feel like for me personally, I have always trusted my instinct is very powerful for me, where I feel like it's something to do with the mixing of the past with different races, when we started becoming less pure, so to speak, when we started interbreeding with other races, whether alien races or other from other galaxies, other planets, and it's kind of we've kind of regressed. For some of us, apparently, we actually, yes, we mated with what do you call it? We mated with animals as well. So that comes into other things like bestiality. Okay, it's like, why? Why are we attracted to these things? Why do we have these fetishes? Okay, fetishes is also another thing. That's another 8th house thing. It's taboo, right? Fetishes. So, but death is one of those things. Why are we afraid of death itself? Because I feel personally that it's something to do with being conditioned to be not okay with the unknown. Be completely like, when we see the unknown, it's always been conditioned. We've been conditioned for thousands and hundreds of thousands of millions of years, probably, to feel like, well, there's death, and then we have this condition, we have this attachment toward it. It is ego. I would say probably for 100,000 years, probably at the least. Yeah, we've been conditioned. Meaning we didn't know what was going on, so it's like, okay, so we started realizing there's a thought process. There's this is this. We labeled that, and then we started to label ourselves. If you look at children, right? If you look at children, especially toddlers, apparently children don't use I; they use third person. They go, Bobby wants milk. Right, we actually start, when we use that, we laugh at it, but there's a reason why we laugh, and I believe there's a truth behind laughter, there's a truth behind humor, right? So, with death, I would say we can contemplate on it, and we can do what the monks do, the Buddhist monks do, at least Buddhist monks, at the very least, where they contemplate on it, and they meditate on it, they sit on it, that does help, because you kind of get basically almost desensitized towards it. I don't know if the same thing works with people who watch horror, because I used to watch a lot of, not a lot, but yeah, like when I watch horror, like when I watched Annabelle, that movie about the doll, I was laughing. It wasn't scary at all. It was hilarious. There's still some triggers inside. Only you would know what you're afraid of. Only you would know. You can tell the other people, I'm not afraid of this, or I don't think I'm afraid of that, but the thought doesn't know much. It's the subconscious, it's the automatic stuff through the brain, all that stuff, evolutionary stuff. If you know what I'm talking about, great. If you don't worry about it. It's that thing that we know. It's the energy we feel. But of course, watching horror movies brings down the energies that we have. We want it to be elevated, of course, but I feel like we can't just elevate unless we elevate. I don't know what the opposite of that is. Going down into the lower chakras. Aaron Dowdy talks about this as well. You're going down, and all the way down to even like way down to the earth fucking chakra. It's like, and really going deep into that. But for me personally, when you do shadow work and you embrace things like, there's this one exercise from the book by Debbie Ford where she goes, you look into the mirror and you say, you make a list of words that trigger you. Used to be mine was faggot. So it's just like, now it's just like, oh, faggot. Okay, cool. There's a little bit of trigger there. I feel it. If somebody were to say that, I would probably have a bit of a reaction to it. I'm not sure yet. I will have yet to see. I've never been yelled at with the word faggot. But I tried to practice it a little bit in the mirror. I kept saying in front of us, I'm a faggot, I'm a faggot. I know it's a weird exercise, but it's actually like you're, in a way, desensitizing. You're kind of getting used to the word and saying, okay. Then it starts to lose meaning over time. You're not really thinking about the word. You start to go like, oh, the word loses power because it's a word. It's the energy that we give the whole thing, right? It's what we perceive it to be. Perception. It's all about perception. The other thing is, of course, surrendering to the moment. I fucking love cold showers. I just took one today, and this is why I'm just like, surrender to the cold. You have cold ice baths. Don't go straight into ice baths if you don't want to, but do cold showers. Try the Wim Hof method. I've mentioned this many times. And, well, maybe not many times, but I've mentioned it in several of my videos. I do the Wim Hof method. I do the breathing so that the capillaries open up so you get used to it, so that when you go to the shower and you do it, it's sort of this practice every day and you commit to it, your body gets used to it in a very fundamental level. I would say at the very least, the top layer, the fundamental levels, and it's already like down there. It's already kind of hitting you, so physically. So that's what it is. That ties into the lower chakras when you're training your lower chakras or the physical body to get used to trauma. Because fear is really trauma, right? Well, the trauma is the reaction of fear, but fear is that whole like, I don't want that because it's unfamiliar. Ties back into what I wanted to tie back into, not only the 8th house, but also the other two houses of endings. The 4th house is originally considered the house of endings, but 8th and 12 are also endings because they're water. There's something to do with, I have all the information from air, I've gotten all this stuff, but what do I do with it? Now it's time to process all that through the emotions. And this is why emotions are such a very, very, very heavy thing. We can't rise from the ashes into fire houses, into our fire selves. Okay, we cannot resurrect. We cannot save ourselves. We cannot find that whole, flailing of that dark energy unless we go through the darkness. And those are I would say the three houses, at the very least with water. That's what it is. So we have to go through this emotion, but we have to sit with it. The other thing is humor. I found humor really works. For me, plutonian thing, dark humor. That's why I have that other video. I think I'm going to link it here, wherever it is, to my video on it was just an analysis of the show, the chart of the show, but I love one of my favorite shows is Santa Clarita Diet. I came across it on Netflix. I was like, Oh, awesome. This is hilarious. Another show I liked that I watched on Netflix before was Surviving Death. If you're still afraid of dying, if you're still afraid of any eighth house things, okay, I'm going to mention it right now. So there's death, of course. Fear of death, fear of death. Cannibalism. Okay, I'm probably going to make a different video about that one. Zombieism, cannibalism, very similar. Okay, viruses, bacteria. Rape, or the misuse and abuse of power, so powerlessness. War, it's more of a sort of, yeah, it's still kind of similar. War, or like fighting and killing, death, so it's very similar to death, right? And poverty, or starvation, which kind of it has a link to cannibalism. And here's the thing about this one. Extreme sexual behavior, so sexual cannibalism, bestiality, scat. What's the other one? Water sports? It's like when you drink piss, you drink pee or something like that. Yeah, those are some things that people fear. But it goes. I'm going down the list in terms of like what is taboo, right? It's funny because the word taboo rhymes with tattoo. I'm gonna actually put that here, but tattoo isn't really taboo. Some people think it's still taboo, but I'm like, it's one of the lower ones. It's just tattoo, right? The other one is sort of like below war. It's self-harm, like when you're cutting yourself. It's people do it like behind your thigh, like I've known people who do that, and it's just like because they want to feel it, they want to know what's going on, so they cut themselves. Suicide is probably one of those things as well. So it's kind of ties into suicide. What's the other one? I wouldn't say it's below this one, but homicide. Genocide is probably a little bit similar. Genocide, homicide, yeah. Genocide, homicide, yeah. So those kind of things, and then poverty, and it goes into, yeah, those crazy stuff. Yeah, so that's it. So anyways, so I'm laughing at it because it's good to laugh. It's really good to laugh at things. It's good to raise your vibrations. You don't want to be in a lower vibration and be like stuck down there, because that's just going to suck you down, and it's going to be the circling of negativity. And it's okay if you go through that, but sit with it. That's the other thing. It goes in kind of a cycle. If you do go down there, sit with it. And try to raise your vibration by looking at, Gabrielle Bernstein says, the next best thing. Stop jumping to like perfectionist, idealism. That's very, very escapist. That's very like Pisces. But again, that's depend on you as a person. I'm not saying, this is do what I do and all those things. But for me, it works. For me, what works is the shadow work and really embracing, like, why am I pointing my fingers at anybody, or what qualities, what gifts can I find from that thing that I project onto others, and also what I project onto others, whether it's positive or negative, meaning like even the positive ones, like, oh, they're so good at this, I'm not, da, 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 da. So you put yourself down. Oh, self-deprecation is probably, that's not really 8th house, but I would probably say it can lead to something extreme, self-deprecation. Sorry, I'm not saying that's not a big thing, but it's like, it probably can be. I'm going to put dark humor here as well. Yeah. There's a bunch of things as well that I haven't mentioned here. Yeah, I forgot to put water sports. Sorry, I'm laughing at water sports because I've seen it, and I do, you see, pornography. Yes, that's another one here. Let's go with that. Pornography. That's taboo for many people still. The more we resist, what you resist persists, right? I don't know who said that, but I got it from Debbie Ford. She mentioned it. I don't know who she referenced it. Who she referenced. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's that. So watch out for those things, depending on also like what planets are involved in your 8th house. Because there's a tendency for the 8th house, for the water houses, for us to run away from them, especially if it's more of a 12th house thing, like escapism. That is definitely, that's a Neptune thing for sure, but also Jupiter, right? Jupiter also is a co-ruler of Pisces. So definitely cold rules the 12th house. Mars and Pluto rule the 8th house. Yeah, and of course the moon. But I would say aspects of the moon, like your shadow stuff. So Lilith, I would say probably coincides with the 4th house as well. And also, in a way, Ceres as well, because she does rule the DNA as well. I'm not really sure where Ceres belongs. I'm not talking about rulership here. I'm just saying in terms of like what else to look for. Anyways, so to summarize, there's the shadow work. Look into shadow work. I would recommend Debbie Ford's books. The Dark Side of the Light Tracers. That one has helped me so much. But the thing about this whole thing is that when we go into something, even like sports, you want to go into what's called, what is that one? Not de-stress, eustress. So cold water is eustress. But the thing about it is that when those are still external things, so shadow work, the idea behind it becomes external. You want to make it part of yourself. Same thing with cold showers, getting used to the cold, you train yourself. But it's not about the water itself, because here's the thing, what if these external sources, like water itself, the books, the knowledge, all those things, humorous movies with dark humor, all those things that work for me, what if they're gone? What happens? The best thing you can do is actually really surrender to the moment, like fucking surrender. It's just like, if you have to give up, go ahead and give up. And I'm not saying give up, I'm just saying sometimes the best way is to cry it out, let it go, release, and just be in the moment and just surrender to that feeling and realize there's a peace that comes after it. Right? It's not just like the whole, like, yes, there's a storm and all that stuff. There's something deeper than that, which is, for me personally, it's coming back to the realization that it's like, oh, you start to get this sort of deeper, instinctive, intuitive feeling that it's like, there's a body, there's a story. You sense it. And you go like, oh, okay. And you start to be okay with it. And then you kind of, you can make it into a practice, but it eventually does become practice because when this is what Eckhart Tolle said one time, it made total sense. It was like, usually change happens, the deepest things or the more profound things that happen, or I don't know, whatever. The point is the things that are the most profound in our lives, the changes that happen when we're ready, when we're willing. In other words, before even all that, when we're sick and tired of victimizing, putting ourselves down, going to lower vibrations and all those things, and all those things, right? So anyways, so you can meditate if you want to, but it's not about the practice. It's not about the practice, not about the method. The method is a tool. And then you make use of it by being there. A tool is a tool. It's an extension of yourself, right? But it's not yourself. The essence is what created the tool in the first place. Now it's to go back. The tool is a reminder to go back to the essence itself, which is being that spaciousness in using, if we were to use Eckhart's words. It's spaciousness, it's emptiness in Buddhism, right? All those things, whatever it is, doesn't matter. These are not the tools. The words are not the tools. I'm trying to say this because in a very straightforward way, in a fucking blunt way, just like go with it. Use the tools if you have to, but let it not be about the method or the technique or any of those things. Okay? This is serious stuff, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be that serious. The 8th house is a wonderful part of ourselves. It's transformation, it's liberation. That's true liberation, right? Fuck Uranus. Uranus is not liberation. It's beyond all that stuff. And it's not even the planets itself. I'm just saying it's beyond astrology. It's beyond the tools. It's beyond any of that stuff. It's the essence behind it. So anyways, so I thought I would just talk about that. So look into anything. I would say when you do shadow work, go through like different pictures and imagine yourself going through that. You can desensitize yourself. In a way, you can use desensitization as also as another tool to imagine yourself what it would be like to get your throat slit, or to die and to suffocate or drown in water, but sit with that. I know this is kind of crazy, but people want to most likely escape it and be like, Buddhists practice this. So I would say I would go beyond that. And if you have to go, like, don't do it physically, of course. The point is to really put yourself in that situation and be like, okay. But also at the same time, you don't need to go watching horror movies that lower your vibration. Watch something that will elevate it. I see this is why dark humor has helped me, or at the very least, like humor, but not humor where you feel like it's escaping the problem, or escaping the thing that you can sit with, the thing that you can just surrender to. Okay? So humor has helped me a lot. The one thing that has definitely helped me is just really using tools to go into surrendering mode. Again, you can use this as a method. It's totally fine. Go into things that you fear and go for it. Just fucking go for it. Just go for it. As otherwise, it's just going to be like, oh, you're just going to be stuck. And I got tired of being stuck. Actually, many times. I've had dark night of the soul, like people call it that way. Basically, like I have Pluto's sun conjunct, right? It's this whole like repetition of like ego flaying, ego fucking flaying, fucking flaying, fucking flaying, fucking flaying. It's like you get, and then you start to go, oh, I got that wrong. And that's okay. I got that wrong, and that's okay. Because that's part of humanity. That's part of being human. You learn through it. I'm not saying go through what I went through. You don't need to force yourself to do that. But one of the suggestions I would do is definitely doing this. But anyways, the point of this video is really to share with you the things that I've gone through. So death is one of those things that it still gets to me a little bit. You never know who you're going to come across with COVID. You never know who you're going to come across who's crazy and wanting to what do you call this? Wanting to play Russian roulette. There's this guy who came to me one time. I was taking the bus, and he said, "Do you want to play Russian roulette?" And he wasn't Russian, and I was just like, I took off my earphones, like, no, thank you. But inside, I was like feeling this thing. I was feeling like, yeah, I probably should walk away. Right there, instinct told me to just walk away and be like, that's not necessary. But I did try to sit with it. And the bus ride home made me realize that it's like, okay. I was sitting, you can say I was sitting with it. At that time, I wasn't really practicing surrendering to the moment. So there's been a lot of instances, swallowing gum by mistake when I was a kid. Scared the shit out of me because I was like, I thought I was going to die. And of course, it didn't help that my mom just said, you're okay. But she was right. But I was just fucking scared. Usually when you're in this sort of, you're in a moment of like fear and you're like, it's a life-threatening situation. Usually the best way to go about it is, especially from someone else, is to have empathy. But instead of having others do it, have empathy for yourself by surrendering to it. It's like, you are not that. It's practice, and you can't put it in words. There is no solution through the word and the language of humanity. It's through the being. It's through something. It's in the invisible. Okay. Anyways, I thought I'd mention all those things, so good luck with that. I just really wanted to share my experience with that. Next time, I will probably make a video on cannibalism, which kind of ties in with one of my favorite movies. And I think this is what why certain people get into, a lot of people actually get into like zombieism, because it's funny. It's a funny take on cannibalism. It's in a way, I'm not saying the horror stuff, but like, especially like the comedic, whatever sort of types of movies, like Shaun of the Dead, right? And it takes on that approach of like, not only making light of the fear behind cannibalism, but also like what else is there? Because humor does something else. Yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about that next time. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching.